next presentation is by Dr. Ravindra Utgikar. He is the Vice President, Corporate Strategy and Marketing at Praj Industries Limited. He also holds a doctorate degree in management, addition to his bachelor degree in electronics and telecommunication engineering, and has over 27 years of industry experience under his belt. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Ravindra Utgikar to kindly make his presentation.
Okay, good afternoon. Looks like a lowly afternoon compared to the very vibrant morning we had when we started this session. Nonetheless, that's understandable. I think we guys are standing in between lunch and you all, but we'll try to keep it brief. Accessible science is an overarching topic, and it's almost like churning an ocean. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a very focused view, and I'm going to talk about accessible science in the context of bioeconomy. I find myself a little bit at odds because most of the speakers are from the world of academia, from the institutes. I'm sure there are people in the audience from the industry who can resonate with some of the things that I will speak here. But we do believe that industry and academia are like two sides of a coin. So when it comes to accessible science, industry does have a role to play, and we are going to throw a little bit light on that. But as the title goes, I'm going to talk a little bit about bioeconomy, what it is, what importance it has got in nation's holistic growth, progress, what are the different drivers. I'm going to talk a little bit about the company that I represent, how we are facilitating accessible science, and probably some industry perspective as to how we can move forward. So bioeconomy is a knowledge-based economy wherein you are using biological resources for the production of goods and services. Essentially, we are talking about biology and chemistry, and of course some principles of physics to make things happen. Almost everything that you can secure through hydrocarbon route, you can as well secure through carbohydrate route. We all know hydrocarbons have a terrible impact on the climate and an environment, and no single newspaper today around the world goes without an outcry on how critical it is to take up sustainable climate actions. So here you have a bioeconomy where you have a renewable source, and you know India is blessed with land, sun, and agriculture in abundance. And as every country leverages their resources, here we are to probably leverage our resources on the agricultural side. And that's actually also need of an hour, because bioeconomy actually enhances, actually makes an inclusive growth, that of a rural community, that of a farmer fraternity. The whole discussion today was about encompassing sustainable development goals. And if you look at bioeconomy, it actually dissects 11 of those 17 sustainable development goals. When it was launched in the last decade, and I think by 2030 we have to fulfill all those goals, we haven't made great progress. But I think if we harness bioeconomy, we have every chance to actually secure these sustainable development goals by 2030. So that's just to score a point, whether it is socio-economical, whether it is ecological, or whether it is even the industry and economic impact. The next I have is about sustainable development. Now, scientific studies have shown that the climate disaster or the climate calamities in the last 2 decades of previous millennium, and first 2 decades of this millennium, there is a substantial rise in the events and calamities. Whether it is loss of human lives, economic setbacks, infrastructure getting wiped out, it is incredible. It's very, very alarming. In fact, only last month, World Meteorological Organization, part of, I think, United Nations organization, published a report where they pegged the losses attributable to climate change to $5.3 trillion in 50 years. And 2 million lives were lost is what the report is saying. And what is alarming for us is although the majority of economic losses were in the developed nations, 9 out of 10 human lives lost were in developing economies. So sustainable development is extremely important. Whatever we do, we have to make sure that we strike a fine balance in people, planet, profit. And that's what bioeconomy allows us to do. And obviously in the Indian context, there are several growth drivers in terms of inclusive growth, in terms of energy security, in terms of social impact, job creation, entrepreneurship, and of course, more than anything else, the environment. So that's about bioeconomy, how we are doing as a nation in bioeconomy. We are doing pretty well. I mean, about $100 billion, and then by the end of this decade, we hope that we will exceed much. This is today's forecast that we'll do around $300 billion, but we'll do much beyond. And typically speaking, bioeconomy can be split into those 5 sub-verticals, and today, again, in the interest of time and I'm going to talk about industrial biotechnology. So that's a little bit about bioeconomy, how we are doing and how it helps a sustainable development. And then the company that I represent actually is India's leading company in the bioeconomy. We are the flag bearers. We have over 1,000 references across 100-odd countries in 5 continents, in setting up plants about biofuels, biochemicals, and various products that fall in the ambit of bioeconomy. What's interesting to note is our company was ranked the best place to work in the global advanced bioeconomy, also the hottest company to watch for in the advanced bioeconomy. The numbers speak for themselves, but Dr. Chowdhury, our founder chairman, was recipient of George Washington Carver Award and William C. Holmberg Award. Both awards, he was the first Indian recipient, and they traveled outside USA or Europe sporadically. In fact, there is only isolated incidents. So that's the strength that our company possesses. We believe in accelerating energy transition through bioeconomy. Our approach to bioeconomy is on 2 platforms, biomobility and bioprism. Biomobility is a platform of low carbon, renewable transportation biofuels, which actually are produced using biological feedstock, whether it is sugary feedstock, starchy feedstock, or lignocellulosic feedstock. And they actually are very, very critical to decarbonization of the transportation sector, whether it is surface, air, or marine. All these are hard to abate sectors. So the more usage of biofuels, the more we are able to save on greenhouse gas emissions, foreign exchange, reducing our dependence on the imported oil and so on, not to mention the inclusive growth of farming fraternity. And the biochemical platform is also a very powerful platform. Everything that is coming, all the polymers can actually also come from bioroot. And I have Professor Yadav who has championed the causes of chemistry and biology, and he's an authority on this topic, and he would agree that harnessing bioeconomy is one surefire way to actually curb greenhouse gas emissions, so that we have this chance of indeed curbing the global temperature rise within 1.5 degrees as per the Paris Accord. Moving forward, how are we doing it? We believe that industry and academia are 2 sides of the coin, and this is a partial list of renowned Indian institutions with which we are associating, we are collaborating, and we are trying to see how the research and innovations and technology advancement done at an institutional level are taken to the next level in the industry and then proliferated all the way to the benefits of humankind. We are sitting in the IISER here today, and IISER runs a nation's most coveted science competition called Mimamsa, which is actually purely based on science, fundamentals of science. And we have partnered with IISER to actually tap those young graduation students in the science domain and encourage them to imbibe them to develop liking about core sciences. And this Mimamsa competition has been very popular. We also work with IISER on getting to the grassroots to appreciate the concept of molecular biology, and actually catch the young science students, even the graduating students, post-graduating students, doctorate students in the remotest part of India, bring them over here, expose them to different technologies, infrastructure, laboratories. That way we are able to actually do our 2 cents in contributing to the scientists. All the Nobel laureates, some of the Nobel laureates were asked that how did you make this far? And many of them have said that we developed liking about core sciences as we were studying in our school. So the idea is to catch young minds and actually see how science can progress. Same way we can talk about ICT, you know, we can have these polymers coming from traditional petrochemical route, but you can also have them come from bio route. Once those polymers are developed in our research and laboratory labs, we can work with ICT to see how those polymers, biopolymers, can have applications across the industry sector, whether it is packaging industry, tire industry, infrastructure industry, cosmetic industry, food industry, and so on and so forth. So I think there is some powerful, and we can go on through the list, but even one thing I would like to mention, that India's journey to net zero or fulfilling the nationally determined contributions is going to be incomplete unless we harness the villages, because majority of India's population lives in villages. So as a part of our social responsibility, we are working to make a net zero village at Mandede. And we are working with Gokhale Institute to see some of the life cycle analysis and some of the concepts that make this journey very feasible. So several initiatives to see how the science can be made accessible at village level, how the villages and those population can benefit from the advancement of sciences, how at an academic level more and more students are coming into the fold. So that's a little bit about how the Prajway is done. But this is a slide where I want to say that, you know, in this journey of new product development and commercialization, there are scientists and there are researchers and there are R&D technologists who actually do all the hard work in terms of screening the ideas, understanding the market requirements, seeing what is technically feasible, and then there are engineers who realize. So scientists invent, engineers realize. And it's very important that industry and academia, industry and institutions work together to actually take the benefits of all the research papers, intellectual property, innovations, and convert those innovations or concepts into real life projects that can benefit masses at large. So there is a big role for scientists and engineers to work together in this domain. But all this journey is far from easy. There are obviously lots of headwinds and lots of tailwinds that one can see here, and I have mentioned just few. But in addition to that, all this journey of new product development has to pass through the valley of death. At every point of stage gate new product development model, we are assessing the sunk costs of product development in terms of R&D experiments versus the forecasted profits and revenue coming from that new product. And at every stage gate, we are checking whether it still makes sense to make that product. You don't want any science and technology to spend any time on science technology advancement which are going to be for the showcase. You want everything that will have an application for humanity at large. So at stage gate model, you are assessing the techno-commercial feasibility, viability of all these projects. And not many projects actually, not many innovations actually make through the valley of death. Only last week, last month, we were at National Chemical Laboratory at the Venture Center, and they showcased tremendous innovative concepts and innovative entrepreneurially projects, startups that were showcasing array of technologies which are mind-blowing. And Dr. Mashalkar was there, and we were talking, and we said that if all these new innovations were to come in everyday life, the world would be very different. But industries and society at large, we have to make a concerted effort that all these innovations actually cross through the valley of death and make that commercialization so that people at the bottom of the pyramid are benefited. Sciences or innovations in science are of little value if the benefits accrued are not going to be available for people who need it the most, the people at the bottom of the pyramid. And that's where it is very important that when we talk about accessible science, industry institutions come together, indeed appeal to the society, and actually together as a society, we actually cross this valley of death and make new products really a success. And this is the last slide where I just want to talk the important role of technology and big picture connection with social, economical, and environmental benefits. And finally, I want to end with this wonderful quote. Actually, this is the one version of my presentation. I also had this same quote that Honorable Union Minister Dr. Sarkar said about Louis Pasteur. But I think that's the only way forward. Science is beneficial. It's for the humanity. Nobody has monopoly over the science, and it's actually the torch that lights or illuminates the progression path. Thanks once again for your time and attention, and I hope to have some time for interaction in a panel. Thanks once again.
We understand the problem of the impact of certain polymers on our environment, especially when they come to plastics. So in that case, how do you collaborate while taking care of the environment and bioeconomy in that aspect? So.
The very fact that these polymers are coming through biological route. So in the bioeconomy, we said it's a knowledge-based economy that uses biological feedstock and biochemical engineering, biothermal engineering with some principles of physics, of course, for the process industry. And therefore, the product coming out of bioeconomy is always low carbon in nature. So, for instance, there is a plastic, and then there is, through bioeconomy, there could be biodegradable plastic or decomposable plastic. You know, so the whole concept of circular economy holds very good in bioeconomy because plants absorb carbon dioxide and goods, products made from plants, when consumed, emit carbon dioxide. So when we are talking of a circular economy, many industries call it, if you're restaurant food industry, they call it farm to fork. If you're in automobile industry, they call it farm to wheel or farm to tank. But in bioeconomy, you are actually calling it cradle to cradle. So whatever comes from the bio route actually goes back in the soil. And that's the best part of having a circular economy, which itself means that we do not add carbon to what already exists in the atmosphere. So your question about causing damage to environment, when it comes to bioeconomy, everything is either carbon neutral or it's low carbon. And that's why its benefits are far-fetched. And more than anything else, it's renewable. And a country like India, which is an agrarian economy, we have abundance of feedstock, biological feedstock. You know, our farmers burn the agricultural waste or residue. So there is every opportunity to do this waste to wealth conversion by way of fuels, chemicals, and they have a potential to replace traditional fuels and chemicals.
Yeah, in fact, I would like to mention that this agricultural waste which people reduce, there could be some strategies to use. Maybe someday they are converted to furniture or anything that is useful or productive.
Absolutely. So. And one last thing to the question at ICT, and again Professor Yadav is here, we have this lab which actually makes these applications right from bench to flask to POs, proof of concept, to actually pilot to demonstration before actually they are rolled out for a commercial scale application. So whatever coming through bioeconomy undergoes this stage gate process to make sure that products are more environment friendly, more sustainable, and support the sustainable development.
Yeah, thank you.
If you have a subconscious spiritual realm to this, I feel that all energy can be harnessed for free from the atmosphere, from the sources of this planet, and it can be re-energized.
Indeed, renewable energy sources need to be harnessed. What we need to be mindful of is, in our enthusiasm, effort, initiatives to solve today's energy problem, are we creating crisis for tomorrow?
Yeah.
For example, the solar panels. For example, the wind turbine blades, for example, the batteries that we will mindlessly consume. So we have to also make sure that whatever energy solutions we are carving out are also
Because they are
sustainable.